So the North Sea update has gone live, and along with getting the second half of the Turning Tides DLC maps, we've also finally been treated to a pretty big weapon shift, dubbed by a big portion of the fan base as Time to Kill 2.0. Basically allowing a lot of the guns to kill a little bit quicker, generally letting them do what they were designed to do a bit better. They're still going to play out as the same old weapons that they were before, but now they're going to be more effective at catering for their specific roles, and it also means that good players should now be able to take care of individual targets in less time, so they can swiftly move on to their next. Now I'm going to keep this video fairly simple and straightforward. I'm not going to be going too in depth with all the stats and stuff, as there's probably already quite a lot of other YouTubers and websites that have already gone over them all. Plus if you want to see the patch notes, you could always just check them out over on battlefield.com. I'll put a link to them in the description down below for anyone who wants to go and do just that. But I'm mainly going to explain how the weapons have generally been affected by the patch, and just run over the main changes in a way that's easy to understand, explaining and summarising how each class is now better or worse at doing certain things, and how they all work in comparison to each other. A bit of a guide, I suppose, of where each class now stands in the game. So let's start off with the Assault class, and more specifically, those SMGs. The time to kill has been reduced across all ranges by slightly bumping up the damage high enough to kill in less bullets. With that said, they're still not exactly very powerful at further distances, as it will still take quite a few rounds to take out opponents in comparison to other classes' guns. Plus they've also been given a little bit more vertical kick to make them slightly harder to control over longer distances. A lot of the weapons for the other classes are going to perform better in most longer range gunfights because of these factors. But because it'll also require less shots to kill up close, the guns are now going to feel a lot more effective at dealing with multiple targets in closer proximities, which is what the assault weapons were designed to do in the first place. Due to the SMGs being able to bring down enemies in less bullets, you'll usually be able to kill more players per magazine, making them more reliable for attacking enemies up on the front lines, as you're not going to be quite as vulnerable, having to reload as often as you needed to before the patch. With them killing faster, this means that there's going to be less of a difference between their overall times to kill. So basically, although some of these slower shooting guns, like the SMG 0818, might take longer to kill than something like the Hellriegel, because it can now kill faster than it did before, you should be able to come out on top of more gunfights, providing you can get on target and start shooting first, basically reducing the variance of kill times of the SMGs in general. Faster firing weapons are still going to have an edge in CQC, but not quite as much as before, as they can now be countered a bit easier by the slower ones, depending on players' skill. The SMGs are now pretty much complete powerhouses for attacking enemies in close quarters, including the semi-automatic M1917 Trench Carbine, which also kills in one less bullet too. And if you're wielding an SMG and you come up against an enemy up close, then you're usually always going to have the advantage, unless you're being overwhelmed or come face to face with a guy with a shotgun, which is even more effective in CQC, but less so than the SMGs further away. Flanking tactics are now more important than ever to really get the drop on the enemy team and make the most of that close range power, as you'll be able to mow down several enemies one after the other from behind a lot easier now, taking out entire squads of players before they even know about it. And if you're quick enough, the SMGs are now more capable of getting you out of tricky situations when you're outnumbered, or surrounded by the enemy team at objective points. So the new patch has made the assault automatic weapons better killing machines, especially in CQC, but what about the shotguns? Well, these are still going to be stronger choices for close quarter engagements, though with SMGs now being more powerful, this puts a bit more pressure on shotgun users to line up their shots properly and gain more ground on their targets first. Apart from the slug variants, the shotguns have been changed up a bit from before, as they all now fire 12 pellets, which all deal different amounts of damage depending on the gun. Whereas before, it was the other way around, as they all used to deal the same damage, but fire off different amounts of pellets per blast. This might sound like a complete overhaul, but they're all still going to function in a similar way to before, as they still all deal different amounts of damage, just like they used to. But with them all shooting the same number of pellets, this basically makes them all more consistent with each other. To help improve consistency even more, the pellets are now dispersed in a less random way, with 2 circles, both an inner and outer circle, each formed of 6 pellets each. This helps to spread out the cone of pellets more so, preventing them all from building up into one area, and either missing your opponent completely when it shouldn't have, or on the flip side, or landing on your opponent at longer ranges and unfairly killing them when it shouldn't. Which might seem lucky for you, but maybe not so much for the poor bugger that's just taken a buckshot to the face at medium range. Moving over to the medic rifles now. Some of these have had damage model changes, including the Farquhar Hill, M1907 SL, and the Sayre Gotti, which have been given a slight range bonus, allowing them to maintain a free shot kill over a longer distance, which should generally allow them to compete with automatic weapons a bit better over medium ranges. Plus, the RSC 1917 has also had its fire rate boosted up to 180 RPM, along with having general reductions in both horizontal and vertical recoil, making it even more effective over further distances than it was before. The self-loading rifles in general have had improvements to their overall usability, with reductions in spread, making them slightly more accurate at longer ranges. This allows for better handling and quicker target acquisition for landing multiple shots on the enemy, giving them a higher level of versatility over a wider range, and basically making them a bit easier to use, especially when firing at quicker speeds. As before, you'd often have to readjust your aim quite a bit after every shot, whereas now you'll be able to stay on target better and take advantage of the gun's fire rate more so, which should translate over to a quicker time to kill. The medic's kill times are still generally going to be a bit slower than a lot of the other weapons in the game, including the support's LMGs, but with them now being more precise, this should make them seem more reliable and flexible, to help counter the extra damage given to the other class's weapons. Assault guns are still going to have a clear advantage over them in CQC, especially now they've had that damage buff, but medic rifles should be better all-round guns, having an accuracy advantage, designed more so for medium to long-range fights. They can still perform well in closer range situations, but there's a lot more pressure to line up shots, as they're generally going to be at a disadvantage. Performance with the medic rifles is a bit more geared towards player skill now, as with a lot of the automatic weapons killing in less bullets, this makes lining up shots accurately and quickly with medic rifles more important than ever, as another player can now take you out a lot easier if you miss a few shots in a head-to-head battle. But the fact that the medic can still regenerate health quicker after winning gunfights by using those med crates and patches, this gives them better chances of survival than the other classes, allowing them to get back into the battle faster and continue attacking their enemies. As for the support class, which has probably benefited the most from the update, the machine guns have undergone similar changes to the assault's SMGs, as they've now been given damage buffs to help them kill in less bullets over all ranges. Time to kill has been reduced, as you'd probably expect, and they're now all going to feel a lot more dangerous than they were before. Yep, even the Hewitt automatic. But one of the biggest, subtle changes to the LMGs to balance it all out is the fact that they now aim down sights slower, and it's going to be a bit harder to get on target quickly in closer ranged fights. This is done to give assault players and medics a slight advantage in CQC, as if it's slower to get on target, it'll be slower to kill. So although the LMGs now kill faster than they did before, an SMG will still have an edge in a close quarter battle. Because of these slower ADS times, this actually makes the trench variant a lot more viable, as you can bypass aiming down sights and use hipfire instead for taking on closer range targets easier. They're still not going to be quite as accurate as the SMGs in close range, but it still makes them more effective than they were before. So trench variants are definitely worth checking out now the patch has hit. LMGs are now the strongest weapons over medium ranges, offering the most firepower when the sights are engaged. They're not quite as accurate as the medic or scout rifles, especially now they've had a slight increase in vertical recoil to help balance their effectiveness, just like with the SMGs. But they're now generally going to be a lot easier to use, making them more capable for dealing with situations when you're surrounded, and when taking on players in just general gunfights, as there's less pressure to land shots due to quicker fire rates, bigger ammo capacities and higher suppression benefits, along with, of course, those now quicker times to kill. You'll be able to take out medics faster, giving them less chance to dash over to some cover to heal up, though a medic rifle will be more effective over longer ranges unless you're using a bipoded machine gun, but this does limit your maneuverability and makes you an easier target. And when you're not using a bipod, or if you're not already aiming down sights with your target in view, then you'll be at a slight disadvantage, allowing the medic rifles to start dealing damage sooner and exploit the LMG's new weaknesses. Now last of all is the Scout class, which hasn't really undergone any major changes, as most of the bolt action rifles are just going to function in the exact same way as they did before. Though because a lot of the other weapons have been adjusted, this does affect how the other classes can be used against Scout players, and in a way it kinda nerfs their effectiveness slightly by putting more pressure on them to land shots, and by making Scout players a lot more vulnerable closer to the front lines. Though the Scout rifles will still be powerful weapons for finishing off weakened targets, and can still deliver some knockout one-hit kills in sweet spot zones too. The rifles are still going to be dangerous weapons for mid to long ranged engagements, just like they were before. But now they can be countered a bit easier by both the medic and support class, with them both being more effective for longer range fights. Because medics are a bit more precise now, due to their lower spread values, this puts more pressure on scouts to line up headshots and try to gauge their one-hit kill sweet spot zones more accurately. They'll have to keep switching positions more so now to hit targets from unexpected angles, otherwise they'll compromise their position. The biggest threat that scout players had prior to the patch was other scout players, but now they'll have more competition over longer distances, forcing them to strike from the shadows and make the most of cover as much as they can to avoid being hit by other weapons. though the higher long range damage that the LMGs now deal might encourage support players to use their bipods more, which might sound like a big kick in the teeth for scouts, though so long as you haven't been seen or spotted, then this should grant you with more opportunities to land easy headshots on targets in stationary positions, giving both classes an equal chance of taking each other out, depending on skill and awareness. But anyway, that was just a bit of an insight into how the different classes now work in relation to each other, skimming over the basic fundamentals of what's actually been altered in the latest update. Hopefully it was easy enough to wrap your head around, and there's quite a lot of little stat changes across the board which I haven't mentioned in this video, so I'd probably recommend looking them up if you really want to see the exact changes to every single gun. But as a general idea, that's pretty much my best explanation on how the weapons are going to play out from now on. I'll be using the current stats as of the new update for any of my future videos and weapon guides, and I'll be updating all of my existing guides with the new stats in the comment sections for each video pretty soon, just so you can see exactly what's changed. But all in all, most of the guns are basically the same as they were before, but now they might be slightly more effective, making them easier to kill with, but also at the same time making you a more vulnerable target too, being up against a bunch of stronger weapons. So that's it for this one guys, hope this video helped you out, give me a like if it did, and let me know down in the comment section what you think about all of these time to kill changes, and whether you think the game really needed them this late on in its life cycle. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in that next episode.